So yeah, this is like a very Orwellian 1984 thing where in that book, George Orwell talks about the policing of language, the thought crimes.
If everything is called like hate speech, or then there's no line anymore. I think it's only one thing happening here, is that we're having to do something for the other side,
right?
But then that means we have to suppress what we've always known. Okay, so hi everybody, welcome back to our channel. Carol, what did you watch? You watched Andrew Cliven was talking to, I guess it was a video. I don't have the video, you guys.
Yeah, I'd have to find the video. But
yeah,
it was just a short 13-minute video about he's a Hollywood guy. He used to be. And so
I just saw him from YouTube, but what do you mean?
But he used to be. I think he used to be a writer or something. Oh, okay. But he left because it was too woke, and so he moved to Nashville and he works with the Daily Wire.
Yeah,
now.
They all moved
because the company did, and I think Ben Shapiro moved to Florida. But
okay, what happened was that Los Angeles got too woke, California got too woke, and everybody cut out. They moved the whole Daily Wire out of California.
But the Daily Wire is a conservative channel, and they have they feature lots of people: Matt Walsh, Candace Owens, Michael Knowles, Andrew Cliven, Ben Shapiro, and just and then their producer is Andrew Boring, which is also he does a lot of talking too. But this particular show that he did, it was about 13 minutes long. He was talking about the war on femininity in movies, and life imitates art. Yeah. So and he was just saying he said back in the day, you could see a lot of this happening in movies like Rosemary's Baby, The Stepford Wives, and this push to make women more masculine and thus giving up femininity and living in a world full of masculine women.
That would be true.
And so I found that to be very interesting because I think we do talk a lot about the war on masculinity and what happens to men.
Which we do believe that there is a war on masculinity.
But I don't think that there can't be a war on masculine unless there is a war on femininity.
Right.
Because you have to get rid of the masculine part of men. In order to do that, you have to make women the same way, which is in what trade places where men become more feminine.
Which y'all know we always talk about roles. Y'all already know.
So he was just talking about certain movies where, like he started with the movie Psycho, the old 1960s movie.
I love that movie.
And that the guy, Norman Bates, the character Norman Bates, is, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, he's just a crazy guy who eventually you find out he killed his mother and her husband. And he kind of plays a part, he's psycho, he kind of plays a part of himself and his mother. So his brain is split in two. He's his mom and he's himself. And so he falls in love with, or he kind of didn't fall in love. Whenever he becomes attracted, I guess, to a woman, in this case, Janet Leigh, the mother part of him despises his masculinity and kills the woman.
Right.
So you find this in movies like Stepford Wives, where women or the feminists are mad at the women that are.
Stepford Wives is a really good example, though. Yeah. Because the feminists, that is a feminist movie if I haven't ever seen one.
Right.
Before.
So men who are married to
feminists love that movie,
move to this town and to feminize their wives again back into homemakers. They are basically roboting them, IGing them and stuff like that, so that these women aren't masculine anymore. They're back to feminine. But the women that are coming in are masculine. They're combating femininity. And so it's the same thing with movies like Rosemary's Baby, who's a woman who sacrificed, a man who sacrifices his woman to give birth to a demon baby for his career. And so they say you can see this whole sort of sacrificing of femininity going slowly through movies since the 60s.
Yeah, because Psycho was those were all it was starting from the 60s.
60s and then it got heavier in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then the 80s we had movies like 9 to 5 and movies that just showcased.
It was a slow process.
And then
you're saying it's a slow process. I'm sorry to interrupt. But you're saying it's a slow process to feminize men and then masculate women.
Yeah.
Which would lead to the switch of roles, which is true, because exactly what we're seeing now, right? We're seeing the literal switch of roles. Like,
men are becoming more feminine. Because they just don't know how to beat this feminism situation. How are they going to get married to women who don't want to be women?
Yeah.
They just want to be in. Do you just sacrifice being a man to get married, or do you and put up with these women as they are, or do you just be single?
Because the common I think question, not I'm saying question, but comment that we get sometimes from men is that, you know, women are so masculine now. Now it's just like that's how they want to be. So we're just gonna be, you know, not that they mean to be. They're just saying that in order to get a woman these days, most women are masculine, so they just kind of adapt to it. Yeah, just kind of adapt to it. And what we're saying is that we feel that men should really be men, because there are men who put their foot down and never went with that feminist movement thing. They never did. And they were looked at as more misogynistic because they decided just to be men and say, no, I'm not going to let a woman take over, you know, my masculinity. That's not going to happen. But there are men who didn't. Yeah. Who just kind of like adapted to what we're seeing now. So,
and I do think it's interesting because art, you know, art does imitate, you know, like
it does. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as we were watching the movie, we did a I guess a reaction video on
Halloween,
the new Halloween.
I'll link it above.
And the whole movie was ruined from wokeness. Because Jamie Lee Curtis had a lot to do with the writing and directing and that, and so she's a feminist, and she made all the women powerful and all the men weak. Yeah. And the movie was horrible because of it. But you can see that they're shouting down, like, and femininity is being the war on femininity is coming from women. It's not coming from men. Right. Not really. I mean, there are definitely what they call male feminists, which is gross, but these male feminists that are helping. Yeah. And definitely male politicians are helping. You know,
like liberal politicians,
especially on the liberal side. But the other day I was watching. Michael Knowles was with Ted Cruz, and he was talking to a woman that was in the audience, and she wanted to talk to him about the Ketanji, his questioning about Ketanji Jackson Browner, and she literally called him a racist and a sexist because because as a senator he questioned her about her record, but you can't question women. He says, so I literally questioned her about her record, and you're telling me that I'm sexist because I questioned her record. He said, and the thing is that's happening with the left is that even if you question a woman or sexist, question a black person, you're somehow racist. You get shouted down, and this is dangerous. This is dangerous because you can't question anybody.
That's the purpose, I think.
That's the purpose. So women are literally winning the war on literally just calling people sexist. Whenever a man has a question or has a it just doesn't agree, you're just called sexist, and they're winning the war with that. And men are just falling in line because now it's starting to go into jobs where if you say anything to a woman, you can get fired. Yeah. If you and be calling you can be called sexist and get fired.
I do think that
men don't want to lose their jobs, so they're just like, okay, whatever.
Well, so the bigger issue that I think that we're having right now is would you say is like language? So I think that language right now is the biggest. If you want to talk about war on something, language. There is a humongous law where you can't, like you were saying, can't say anything. If you do, then you're going to be labeled as blank. So masculine men right now. So we did a video on this about the misuse of words and overuse of words. Okay. So masculine men, alpha males, if you will, they are, in my opinion, behaving like true men, true masculine men. Where when you see an overbearing like woman, you know, or you're talking about you want to, you know, provide for your family, you know, you like for a woman to be home. These men are now being labeled as misogynistic men, or you know, sexist men, you know, and I think that is the misuse of that term. I think we're overusing terms and misusing those terms. I don't believe those men are misogynistic. I think they're just being masculine. But because we are trying to make women masculine, it's like it's having you know what I mean? Like it's having a reverse effect here. And I think that when we do these things like trying to change pronouns and this type of thing, you know, the cisgender thing that's happening, you know, calling women cisgender and all that, I think that they are really trying to do away
change
with
language.
change
So
language, and do away with women.
So calling me a cisgender, because now that's becoming a thing.
Yeah.
Like where they go, you're a cisgender woman or cisgender male.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then transgenders are called males, females.
Right.
And then we should not just go along with that. And we are just, and like people are starting because they're afraid, because you can get fired for mispronouncing people.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this is like a very Orwellian 1984 thing where in that book, George Orwell talks about the policing of language, the thought crimes. When you think something different, you can. I mean, I think in the book they actually kill people, and your kids actually tell on you. So like the children are like the parents. So if they see you doing something, they tell the government. And so the scary part of that is that you can almost actually see that happening in real time.
Yeah.
Where when we were talking about the parental rights bill, that they were trying to. The thing is they're trying to give kids a safe space where kids don't have to tell their parents anything. You know what I mean? They can have like their own little thing at school, and then they go home, and then if your parents don't go along with it, they get like child service can be called. You know what I mean? So I feel like we're kind of going into like this sort of, you can't call me a woman. Yeah. If I call myself like Adele won an award, and she said I love being a woman, and she got canceled by the transgender women.
Oh, they came for her.
I understand why the name of this award has changed, but I really love being a woman and being a female artist. I do.
Came for her for saying that because she says she likes to be a woman when you
can't. So as a natural woman, you can't say that.
It's like saying that the Harry Potter lady,
J.K.
Rowling saying that gender matters.
Because it does.
Because truth has to matter somewhere, and then they went after her and said she was, that she was homophobic and transphobic and all that, and so you can kind of see it like happening, and just like the things you can't say, because the thing is, if you can police language, you can make people submit to something they don't believe in.
Yeah, that's true. If everything is called like hate speech. Or, you know what I mean, then there's no line anymore.
Right.
And I do think I think that lines and definitions and language is important. Like this whole new, this whole pronoun thing, it's bothering me. Because it is kind of like you're policing language. And you're saying, so if I don't want to go with what you're saying, right? So, Candace Owens talked about this with Mark Lamont Hill. She was making a good distinction because she was saying that I shouldn't have to...
You can believe what you want, but I should not have to be in your delusion.
And then her example was like, this is a water bottle, and then this is a phone, right? And you can call the water bottle a phone, and you can call the phone a water bottle, but we all know what that, so we know what that is. So I'm not gonna go just to soothe you. To soothe you. I'm not gonna go and switch the language.
Right.
So I think it's only one thing happening here, is that we're having to do something for the other side.
Right.
But then that means we have to suppress what we've always known.
And that's just weird.
Yeah, it is strange.
You know what I mean? I don't know, I feel as though there is just it's like we were saying, I mean, I think even, because Andrew Cliven's also a religious guy, and I think he was born Jewish, and then he converted to Christianity, because he just didn't, I think he was Jewish, but his parents weren't really into it.
Yeah.
He got bar mitzvah and everything, but I think he told Ben Shapiro that he just, he was mostly agnostic while he was in Hollywood, and he found God, and, that was it.
Right.
But he was just saying that it's almost basically like trying to beat the Bible. Because like I was saying before, how can religion stand
under these circumstances?
Because how can any woman be a feminist and call herself a Christian?
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't.
Well, not this new wave, especially.
Right. So any of these girls going to church or whatever, or any of these women going to church, and they're still acting like a feminist, and then they go to church, they're not acting the way that the Bible tells them to act. So how can religion stand at this point?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I do find that it is very interesting that that he said that, because I was just saying that the other day. I don't know how a world of Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion how church can still be strong. Yeah. When they're starting with kids in third, and when they're trying to get to kids in kindergarten.
Yeah.
You want to like know, like the feminists, they've been doing this for, feminists have been doing this since this, since the 60s, since the glorious time of, years of the late 60s. And, the experiment is failing.
Yeah, it is.
And it's turning our country into something that's really kind of not good. You know what I mean? Like most of the women that are in power, the Ilhan Omars, the AOCs,
what they call
the Hillary
Clinton, the squad,
the Kamala Harris, the Ketanji, like they're really not. Like if you're going to use these women to be the women to really show what we can do,
the spokesperson.
You know what I mean? They really suck. You know what I mean? And I hate it because most of these women are college graduates. They've done some things, but they haven't made life better. And I remember days when women used to say, if women ran the world, there'd be less wars. There'll be less this, there'll be, happier people. And that's just not true. It seems like it's gotten like more angry.
Well, even
more frustrated.
But women in power is interesting because we've seen this a lot, right? Women in power. So especially these days, we've seen a lot of women in power. And during the course of time, women in power has been really kind of like not great. Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with emotion. Is that we are very emotional people. We make decisions emotionally usually. So I actually know women who are like this.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're making a lot of money. They're in the top upper echelons of their careers. If not, they own their. They just kind of like jet setters. These kinds of women. They are just not happy. The women I know that are like that are not happy. Most of them are single mothers.
Single mothers.
Most of them are single mothers, and then you know what I mean. And then the ones that do have more high powered careers and are married, they're different. They're not like that.
All of our married women friends,
that
are on, like if I go to Facebook,
acquaintances and friends,
they are not tacky. They don't take sexually charged photos
at all.
They aren't they don't even though that they have jobs. They're not women. They're not walking around talking about sisters can do it for themselves. They're not doing that. But then all of the women that are exact same age that are single they're all like angry and frustrated, overly sexually and then their kids act just like them. And so, look, the patriarchy, it was important. And I think that the way that, especially like we talk about the single mother rate in the Black community for women, that we could have used some patriarchy. And I think that we were really the, again, what's the word? Experiment. We were the experiment, really, of what happens when you take the patriarchy out of the family home. Because our numbers are much more higher than any other demographic in the United States. So it's just like, so when you take the male out of the home and you let the government take over, or you just go to college and think that you're going to have kids without a man and talk like that, you know what I mean? We are really the experiment of that.
Right.
And how it breaks up our homes, how it breaks up our own personal female spirit, how it breaks up our men and turns them into useless in some way.
Well, but also
kind of what do you call it? When they're kind of dependent on women because so many Black men are raised by women. Yeah. And so they look at their wives like they look at their mother in charge. You know what I mean? That's why a lot of NBA and NFL players, they always, someone was saying the other day, I think it was either Matt Whitlock or something was saying, that's why so many are, I love my mama. Their father is never there. Yeah. It's always like their mother.
But see, that was the plan though, I think. So the plan was to eventually get to the point where, particularly in the Black community, but in general, the plan was to get men to be that way. Yeah. To be the mama's boys. And for the women to now be the fathers, which you cannot be a father if you're a woman, but pretend to be the father.
Yeah, I mean, we are a good example of what happens when the matriarchy is in charge.
It doesn't work.
It just doesn't work. So when I see, this is why I don't like feminism, is because this is what it does. It will, and it's happening with white people too. I mean, their numbers are not at all like they were years ago. But, it was just like what Ted Cruz was saying to that girl, that young lady that was in the audience. It's just like she's a liberal and she's being taught in college because I think he was at a college. She's being taught in college that if any time a man questions a woman, you can just call him sexist and shout him down. And then that wins for you. And he did the greatest thing in the world for her, is to let her know that is not true. That if you think that you're so masculine, you need to be able to take it like a man.
So that would be like toxic.
And most women can't.
That's toxic femininity right there.
Right.
Where you're not getting what you want, and then you shout someone down, and you don't allow them to have an opinion, and you boohoo and cry about it later. That's toxic.
Which is the case that they say about Kevin Samuels, is that the way that Kevin Samuels talks to women is how men are talked to from other men and from women.
Right.
Women have no problem calling a man fat.
Yeah.
And making fun of him and do it, but men take it because that's just what men do. You know what I mean? But when he gives it to you raw, women don't like it. They don't like to hear the truth. They don't want to hear that they need to stay in their place. They don't want to hear that they're out of line. This is what happens when, and then you know what? Men don't do it because they're afraid. And then what do? You get a Will and Jada situation where he does something for her that looks grandiose, and then she comes back later and says, "I don't need to be taken care of. I never said I did."
Right. So it's like, what?
What? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what it is. It's like this.
But even like us, women will call us toxic. Some of the stuff that we say is toxic, because we are promoting traditional roles.
Because I don't want you to be a single mother. And
it's so funny. It makes me laugh whenever we get women that say that. Like, you guys are just saying, what you're saying is so toxic. I'm like, what we're saying is completely natural and normal.
Right.
Up until whenever.
Every time 15 minutes ago, it was normal.
All of a sudden, women are not women, men are not men. We're all calling each other different pronouns. Everything's toxic, everything's sexist, everything's homophobic, everything is racist. Like, there is literally no line at all anymore. I'm like, what is toxic about saying you want tradition? We were going to talk about Cam Newton next. I know he's a hot topic. He's a hot topic right now. So we're going to talk about him next in Friday's video. So we're going to continue this conversation, and we'll see you on Friday. All right. Bye, guys.